name's Hydo, and welcome to the Pantheon, the deck building show where we have a look at the top 5 cards for any given commander. Today we're going to be having a look at the backside of one of the new Strixhaven legendaries, and it's quite interesting, to be honest. I like these cards, I feel that you should really center your deck on one half of them, and so today we're going to be having a look at the back half. And that is Imbraham, the Dean of Theory, who weighs in at 4 mana. Now, Imbraham, to me, sounds like a small village that you'd find in the countryside of England, but here it is a bird wizard. So let's have a look at his abilities. He has flying, nice bit of evasion, and you can pay X double blue and tap. Exile the top X cards of your library and put a study counter on each of them. Then you may put a card you own from Exile with a study counter on it into your hand. Finally, he's a 3/3. Nice bit of evasion, can pick off a couple of enemy planeswalkers. So we've got an ability where you can pump a bunch of mana into X and get a card, basically. The interesting thing is you can just play, if you have a couple of cards with study counters on, you can just play double blue and then get one of your cards. You don't have to actually pump mana into X. But considering we've got a large ability with, a bunch of mana that you want to pump into it, we don't want to be doing it on our turn. We want to be doing it on our opponent's turn, which leads us to card number 5. Venser, Shaper Savant. 2 mana for a 2/2 with flash. The main reason I want to focus on creatures with flash is that we want to hold up that mana. If our opponents do anything, we can use Venser when he enters the battlefield, return target spell or permanent to its owner's hand. But if nothing happens, we're not really bothered what our opponents are doing, we can activate our commander's ability, get a bit of card advantage, nice bit of card selection. Going with this, we've got a couple of other cards. Ginger Taxis Core Augur is a 10 mana 5/4 with flash. At the beginning of your end step, draw 7 cards. Each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 7. Incredibly cruel card, but it will win games. And it's got flash. We want to be building up a lot of mana for our X ability, so getting to 10 mana is not unreasonable. Teferi, Mage of Zalfir is a 5 mana 3/4 with flash. Creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield have flash. Each opponent who can cast spells only anytime they can cast a sorcery. So gives every single creature in our deck flash. We're going to be playing at instant speed for the rest of the game, and our opponents can't interact. That's one of the major benefits of Teferi. Really, really good creature. Finally, we got Draining Whelk. 6 mana for a 1/1. Flash, flying. Draining Whelk enters the battlefield, counter-attack spell. Put X 1/1 cancel on Draining Whelk, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. So it is not just a 1/1 flyer. It's going to be pretty large if we're counting something impressive. Can also play a couple of flicker cards with these. Deadeye Navigator works very well with Draining Whelk or, what's his name? Venser. So you could consider putting cards like that in. But it's not just creatures that we want to play at instant speed. At number 4, we've got a little pet card of mine. I really, really like this card. It's not the best, but it's got 2 effects mixed into one that we really want to play. Spell Contortion is a 3 mana instant with multi-kicker for a blue and 1. So 2 mana to add something onto it. Spell Contortion reads counter-attack spell unless its controller pays 2. So if our opponents are tapped out, we can really get someone. But it also has draw a card for each time Spell Contortion was kicked. So we can counter a spell, and if we've got a bunch of mana left over, we can draw a ton of cards. I really, really like this combination, and it's a very cheap card that you can put into your deck, and you'll get some value off it. Even if you don't counter the spell, you can draw 6 cards maybe if you've got an absolute ton of mana, 15 mana even. Going sort of similar to this, because we're holding up mana, we've got a couple of modal spells that could be either card advantage or a counter spell here. Thassa's Intervention is 2 blue and X. Choose one, look at the top X cards of your library, put up to 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, or counter-attack spell unless its controller pays twice X. Great, nice bit of interaction, or, similar to our commander's ability, if nothing's happening, we can dig through the deck. Supreme Will is another one of my pet cards. 3 mana for an instant. Either choose one, counter target spell unless it's control pays 3, or look at the top 4 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This is great, digs through the deck again, gets us to specific cards. Mystic Confluence is a 5 mana instant. Choose 3, better than choose 1. You may choose the same mode more than once. Counter target spell unless it's control base 3, return target creature to its owner's hand, draw a card. So it's a counter spell, it can be a board wipe of sorts, bouncing everything, or it's just a big divination, drawing us 3 cards. Sorry, divination's 2 cards. My mistake, it's a big catalogue, I think draws you 3 cards. Anyway, all of these, you can leave your mana open and do one of 2 things, and it's very, very powerful. Which brings us on to number 3. Now, our commander's ability is very key to the deck, and being able to copy it is going to be fantastic. Illusioner's Braces is a 2 mana artifact equipment. Whenever ability of a quick creature is activated, if it's a mana ability, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for that copy. So we get to dig twice and get 2 cards into our hand. A couple of things that we're going to do with this. Muddle the Mixture. While being a counterspell, we can also transmute it for a specific card. Transmute means that you can pay 3 mana at sorcery speed, discard this card, search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost as this card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So Illusion's Braces cost 2, we can search up any 2 cost. Cyclonic Rift costs 2, and Muddle the Mixture is a great way of finding it. And, you know, Cyclonic Rift is a great way of winning the game. Rings of Bright Hearth is a 3 mana artifact. Whenever you activate an ability, if it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 2. If you do, copy that ability, you choose new targets for that copy. Again, we just pay 2 mana, we get another version of that. Say we've got 10 mana, we pay 6 into X with the 2 blue, and then we pay 2 to double it. So we get 12, look at 12 cards, get 2 into our hand. Lithoform Engine is another brand new card. 4 mana for a legendary artifact. We can either pay 2, copy target activated or triggered ability you control, choose new targets. Pay 3, tap, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control, you may choose new targets. Or 4, tap, copy target permanent spell you control, that copy becomes a token. Great little card. The fact that you're tapping it is a bit of a downside, but we can copy absolutely everything. It's really, really cool. Which brings us on to number 2. And it's a doubling effect, but because we're dealing with X in the activated ability cost, Unbound Flourishing gets its own spot because we can really build around it in the deck. 3 mana gets an enchantment. Whenever you cast a permanent spell with a mana cost that contains X, double the value of X. So if we're playing a large Hydra, we get double the effect. Then, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, or activate an ability, if that spell's mana cost or that ability's activation cost contains X, copy that spell or ability. You may choose new targets for that copy. You don't have to pump mana into it, you just get the copies for free. Brilliant. So, to go along with this, we've got Blue Sun Zenith, 3 blue and X, instant, target player draws X cards, shuffle Blue Sun Zenith into its owner's library. If we make enough mana, you could possibly win the game off this. Hydroid Crisis is a green, a blue, and X. When you cast the spell, you gain half X life and draw half X cards, rounded down each time. Then it's a flying trampler and enters the battlefield with X/1/1 counters. Can be a large beater, refill your hand. Really, really cool card. Pull from Tomorrow is very, very similar to Blue Sun Zenith, but it doesn't target. So you can't target your opponents with it to win the game. But it is very, very mana efficient. 2 blue and X, draw X cards, then discard a card. Who cares if you're discarding a card when you're drawing about 23? Absolutely fantastic. Which brings us on to number 1. And this commander really plays with Exile. We're going to be putting a lot of cards into Exile. So why don't we use that to our benefit? Eternal Scourge is a 3 mana 3/3. Eldrazi Horror, and I don't really know what's going on with the artwork. It's just a mess. But you may cast Eternal Scourge from Exile. When it becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, exile Eternal Scourge. Not that big of an issue, you just cast it again. So when we activate our commander, this might go into Exile. Then we can just cast it for free at any point in the game. Really, it doubles our commander's usefulness because we get 1 back, sure, but this is like getting 2 back, or potentially more. Mist Hollow Griffin is a 4-mana 3/3 with flying. When you cast Mist Hollow Griffin from Exile, you may cast Mist Hollow Griffin from Exile. Exactly the same effect. Very, very cool. Then this, technically you can't play this in your deck because if you look at the very bottom there's some minor black pippage, but you can pay it with green. So personally, because all of the activated abilities and costs can be activated by our commander, green-blue, I think you should be able to put this in your deck. And if you want to play with those rules, do, but the official rules say you can't. But Torrent Elemental, you can't cast it from Exile, but you can pay 5 mana to put it from Exile onto the battlefield tapped. And then he's a flying 3/5. Whenever he attacks, tap all creatures defending player controls. Very powerful effect. To make these even better, we've got Manipulate Fate, a 2-mana sorcery. Search your library for 3 cards, remove them from the game, then shuffle your library. Draw a card. So it's a cantrip, but if we find Mist Hollow Griffin, Torrent Elemental, and also Eternal Scourge, it's not just a 1 mana draw a card. It's 1 mana draw 4 cards, which is incredible and such cool synergy. And then we can just cast them at our leisure. But if we're going to be playing with all these exile creatures, or play from exile creatures, Food Chain is a great inclusion. A 3-mana enchantment. Remove a creature you control from the game. Add X mana of any one color, where X is the removed creature's converted mana cost +1. This mana may only be spent to cast creature cards. So, if we have a Mist Hollow Griffin, cast it from Exile, use Food Chain to exile it, we're going to generate 5 mana. Then we can just cast it again and again and again. Generate infinite amounts of mana, which we can pump into a Walking Ballista sort of effect. Walking Ballista is an XX, enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counter on it. Pay 4, put a 1/1 counter on Walking Ballista. Remove a 1/1 counter from Walking Ballista. It deals 1 damage to any target. So we can ping the entire table to death. Or if we're just playing a Hydra tribal deck, with that X cost sort of theme, we can cast an absolutely massive Hydra. Foresight is very, very similar to Manipulate Fate. It's essentially the same card. Pay 2 mana, sorcery. Search your library for any 3 cards and remove them from the game. Shuffle your library afterwards. The draw a card is at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, however. So it's a slow draw, but you're still 2 mana draw 4. Well worth it. And that is the best cards for this commander, in my opinion. Have a check out of the other side of this card. You'll find a link down in the description to see a lot of other cards that go really well with this sort of theme. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe and bye.